Greetings gamers and welcome to a very special episode here today on the Retro Raider Show. And why is this a special episode? Well, the answer is right here, because today we are celebrating two of the biggest gaming anniversaries this year. These two characters, their legacy, and these two games need no presentation. I'm talking about, of course, the original Sonic the Hedgehog and the iconic Super Mario 64. The blue mascot, the Sega icon, is turning 30 years old today. Super Mario 64, my personal favorite Super Mario game of all time, the game that introduced Mario to the 3D world, is turning 25 years old today. These make me feel old, but at the same time they make me feel very nostalgic. And that's what this episode is all about. I'm just celebrating these two big anniversaries. And of course that I'm not going to introduce or, say to you guys anything new about these games. Everybody has played these games. No matter, if you played it back in the day, no matter how old you are, you definitely played these games. Let's just start with Sonic and my early memories with the blue mascot. As you guys know, if you follow my channel, my very first introduction to video games was thanks to the Sega Mega Drive. Back in the day, I used to play a lot of beat 'em ups, Revenge of Shinobi, Golden Axe, Streets of Rage, and even though I didn't have a Mega Drive back in the day, I used to play a lot, at friends' houses that had a Mega Drive. And that was, a big reality, a big gaming reality, if you will, here in Portugal back in the early 90s, because, Sega was king here, pretty much. I would say that, in 10 houses, right, 9 would be, Sega owners, and one kid would have a Super Nintendo or an NES. So my gaming reality, if you will, back in the day, was all about the Sega Mega Drive. I was around, 5 years old, then later on, eventually I got the PlayStation 1, but, for 2 years more or less, I just played a lot of Sega Mega Drive. So eventually, during my gaming journeys, of course that I came across Sonic. And it was everywhere. It was in gaming magazines, on TV, commercials, merchandising, right, school materials, stuff like that. And I can't quite remember, but I think that the first Sonic game that I played was Sonic 3 and then Sonic 3D on the Mega Drive. Still to this day, my favorite Sonic game is Sonic and Knuckles. Just because, I love Knuckles. Knuckles is one of my favorite Sega characters of all time. And it would have been awesome if, Sonic 3 somehow managed to, be released, with a complete thing that they had on paper back in the day. Because we all know that Sonic and Knuckles was supposed to be part of Sonic 3. It was supposed to be one whole game. That one still remains my favorite. Arguably, most of the fans prefer Sonic 2, but this right here was the ground zero. And I always say, to new gamers, right? Kids that want to get into retro video games, if I was going to advise one game, one platform game, it would probably be Sonic the Hedgehog. It just holds really, really well. I think that Sonic didn't age one day. One single day. And when I think about Sonic, I think about the 2D games, right? We had a lot of Sonic games later on, most of them not very good in my personal opinion, even though there are some good 3D Sonic games out there, but the 2D classic Sonic games is where my heart is when it comes to Sonic the Hedgehog. And it still is what it was back in the day. It's fast, it's cool, the soundtrack it's one of the best on the platform game, and that is what I always associate Sonic with. Sonic is a cool kids game, which is funny because nowadays, geek and nerd is kind of the new cool, if you will. But back in the day, in the early 90s, if you were playing Sega, if you were playing Sonic, you were definitely a cool kid. And with all of that being said, even though I don't have as many memories with Sega or an attachment with Sega like I have with Nintendo or the Sony PlayStation, Sonic still remains for me the iconic video game character. For me, Sonic is the definition of a gaming mascot. Moving on to Super Mario 64, this beautiful cartridge right here. The first time that I played a Super Mario game, I believe it was on the Game Boy, the original Game Boy. Then I didn't have any friends with the NES or the Super Nintendo, but I had a couple of friends that had, the Famiclones. Famiclones were just very, very popular here. I'll dare to say that a lot of kids, from the late 80s to early 90s here in Portugal got introduced to the Nintendo library, right? The iconic games, Contra, Metroid, Super Mario, etc. thanks to the Famiclones. So I do remember playing the original Mario game. But I don't know, back then Mario was just not, very appealing to me. I grew up, as a Sega kid, so I was more attached to Sonic when it comes to, 2D platform games. Then I moved on to the PlayStation 1 and it was all about Crash Bandicoot, at least for me. But then the Nintendo 64 came, right? And it was also released 25 years ago, celebrating the 25th anniversary today. 25 years ago, this beautiful machine from Nintendo was released in Japan. We got the Nintendo 64 a little bit later on here in Portugal. A lot of my friends actually have moved, some of them got, moved from the 16-bit generation, right, to the PlayStation 1. Others moved, just jumped into the Nintendo 64. And I also had a lot of friends that just switched, no pun intended, from the Sega Saturn to the Nintendo 64 or from the PlayStation to the Nintendo 64. And it was an incredible machine with incredible games. Nowadays, in retrospective, its gaming library, it's probably not as iconic as the, PS1 or even the Saturn. It lacks a lot of stuff, RPGs, for example. Games like Banjo-Kazooie, Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time, and Majora's Mask. And of course, Mario 64. I remember the first time that I watched this game. And I bet that a lot of my friends from Portugal will relate to this. Do you guys remember Templo dos Jogos? So to put you guys into context, Templo dos Jogos was a TV show, and this was the TV show to watch back then in the 90s if you were a gamer. We had, gaming reviews, previews, trailers, everything that you wanted and that you needed back then if you were a gaming enthusiast. Let's not forget, guys, this is pre-YouTube era. And on that TV show, they would review games and then they would score them from 0 to 100. And Mario 64 was the very first time, and I could be wrong, but the only time that they give 100 out of 100 score on a video game. And let me know down below, guys, if you're from Portugal, let me know if you remember this moment right here.
E pela primeira vez na história do Templo dos Jogos, vamos dar uso ao 100% e atribuí-lo com louvor e distinção ao Super Mario 64.
And yeah, that was it. I was hooked because, it was the very first time for me. I was very much into, cutscenes, even though I didn't call, cutscenes back in the day. The whole, presentations and, opening cinematics, stuff like that in video games, right? It was the 3D era. And back in the day, I used to imagine, how amazing it would be if I could play the games, right? The in-game footage or the in-game graphics. It would be amazing if they were like the cutscenes. And this was it. This is what Super Mario 64 was for me back in the day. Even though it was Mario, and I was not very attached to Mario back then, right? The gameplay, right? The graphics that you would get while you were controlling Mario and exploring the worlds and the castle, right? The graphics were the same as cutscenes. And I was so jealous because I wanted a Nintendo 64 so bad, but I already had the PS1, so I had to wait a little bit. And then, early 2000s, I eventually got the Nintendo 64, and I just played the hell out of Mario 64. And yeah, this was the video, guys. This was just me celebrating these two amazing video games right here, these two gaming icons. And yeah, these were two very important gaming anniversaries this year. So the best way for me to end this video, happy birthday, Sonic, and happy birthday, Super Mario. And please let me know, guys, let me know down below. Feel free to share your memories, your childhood memories with these two iconic games right here. Also, if you guys have the extra time, feel free to follow me on social media. I'm on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. As always, take care of yourselves, take care of the gaming community, and game a lot.